Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening everybody. It's Friday afternoon. Militiaman and Crew here. Looking forward to a wonderful weekend. Some pretty powerful stuff that's been out the last few days and this last week. I just want to go over a few things. You've probably already been caught up enough to know that the Parliamentary Finance informed the reasons for the government not voting on the budget schedule. Why? Because they were incomplete. They didn't get them. So that was fascinating. We talked about that a day or so ago, and Militiaman and Crew got it right. It says the budget law schedules were supposed to be presented in the previous session of the Council of Ministers, but they were postponed due to the increase in government spending, the large deficit within the budget, and the government's overrun of the original 2023 budget. I'm not so sure that's exactly the way that works out, but that's what they say anyway. It says the budget law schedules were presented in the next session of the Council Ministers, and we're awaiting their approval and sending them to the House of Representatives. Well, they didn't quite get all the materials that they need from what we understand, and therefore the COM hasn't voted on it yet. We find that very interesting that they haven't done that, and they want, I think we're going to find that they've mentioned in another article, they're talking about precision. So if we get to that, you'll understand where I'm going with this. The Speaker of the House of Representatives agreed with the Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, he's the deputy, or he's the acting parliamentary finance. His name is Al-Mandalawi. It says that they agreed of the necessity of completing the schedules of the budget law for 2024 and expediting their sending to the House of Representatives for the purpose of discussing and voting on them. Okay, so that's the way it's going to work. So once the COM gets it, they'll vote on the amendments, and then they'll forward that on to the House of Representatives. I don't know that we're waiting for all of that, to be fair, when it comes to Al-Alaq. Al-Alaq's job is to do what? His job is to be independent, and that is part of his job, which is the exchange rate. If there's going to be a change, he's the guy that's going to be probably acting in a manner to do so. Basically, it says the COM, or my view basically is that the COM didn't get the completed budget schedules as they mentioned. They were supposed to, but because of the government spending and so forth, and items to be funded over and above the original 2023 budget. At least that's what they say. So that's why one of the reasons it didn't do it. So let's see what happens in the next few days. If the COM has their normal meeting on Tuesday, or this next Tuesday, or do they do it in an emergency session? Because they talked about two reasons that they could have an emergency session. One would be the budget schedules, and two would be the HOR. Well, the HOR meeting for the vote on the Speaker of the Parliament, Speaker of the House of Representatives, is for Monday. I think it was a coalition framework that said, look, you guys got a week to do so. That week is up on Monday. Could they do it sooner? They possibly could. We'll see how it rolls. So interestingly enough, but they had adjourned their last session, and they are now to be on recess. But because they have a recess, they did say for those two items I already mentioned, the budget schedules and the voting on the HOR speaker are on the table for emergency meetings. Emergency to me is like, well, you never know when emergency is going to happen. So could that emergency vote happen at any time within that month period that they have it during their recess out till June 9th? Sure, it could happen at any time. Is it a back wall? Yeah, but is it something we have to wait for? Not at all, not in my view. My view is that what's happening with all the other things that we talk about the other countries coming in, electronic interconnectivity with the borders, everything like that is all part of the process. And it's all subject to many things, even Turkey agreements with the water and the oil. You haven't seen the oil run yet. So everybody that's out there doing business is waiting for Iraq to make their move, and probably in conjunction with other people around the world, because it's going to be a global event as far as my view is, and I think the crew are behind me on that one, but we'll see how if we're right or not. But anyway, it says that this article says that the Iraq Parliament enters It's legislative recess, which I talked about, and extraordinary sessions on 2 matters. Those 2 matters I already went over. So basically, the House of Representatives will enter this legislative recess starting tomorrow, which was today. It says the Parliamentary Legal Committee, Raid al-Maliki, says on Thursday, representatives ended their legislative term for the 3rd legislative year. And starting tomorrow, Friday, the House will enjoy the legislative recess until next June. So fair enough. So we went over that. Basically, we believe that, like I said, they can have an emergency session. It says if the position of the Speaker of the House of Representatives is agreed upon or the budget tables are sent to the House, Parliament will hold an extraordinary or emergency session to discuss any important event during the legislative recess. So from today on, anytime that stuff happens to arrive, they can get together and have sessions, extraordinary sessions or emergency sessions, however that may be. So that's pretty good. And it's really fascinating because that really does open a window for us all to think that something what they can do is show us something. If they don't change this, that's where we are. It's what they're saying. It's in writing. So enjoy. Regarding the delay in sending the budget schedules, it says the Sudanese advisor from Parliament is informed. The financial economic advisor, Mohammed Saleh, commented on Thursday. The tripartite federal general budget was legislated in accordance with the law number 13 of 2023 and was published in the official gazette on June 26, 2023. If we go back in history, remember that they approved all the budget, 23, 24, and 25 from the HOR. The government has the ability, based on that, to be able to amend the budgets. And they are focusing in on not so much the 23 budget, but 24 and 25. And they have the ability to do so. So we'll just say that, because that means to me, if I'm right, and if we believe that it's correct, is that they have the ability, Al-Alaq can step in prior to. But there's also the view that they can do this post haste after the fact. The COM, for instance, can get the budget schedules, amendments, and vote on the amendments. And then they would take that to the HOR, and so be it. But again, the independency of the central bank comes into play, because if they get the amendment and they only stick with the amendment, obviously they're not going to be exposing the exchange rate. So we'll see how it turns out. But in the next couple of days, at least we know that they're expected to have a vote on the Parliament Speaker, and that's in the forefront. And we'll see how they roll with the additional measures when it comes to the budget schedules. When they talked about precision, they needed the number. They needed the exact numbers where they're coming from. And I believe those exact numbers are going to come from the exchange rate, or the precision of that. Okay, not the exact numbers, but the precision. Anyway, it says here, estimating the schedules for the 2024-2025 budget must depend on the financial movements taking place that they did in 2023, in part knowing something about the final account for the aforementioned year in accordance with the financial management law. This requires at least 4 months. So obviously they didn't quite get that done until June, right? And then I think they didn't actually reconcile it until August. So ultimately by the end of the year there was about 4 months. And so here we are. We're in the 5th month. 4th month is complete, and obviously we're in the relatively early part. We're not to the mid part yet. So let's see what kind of precision they have as far as timing is concerned, because the more precise they get down to the wire with the time, probably is a good thing. It says, Soleil, he concludes his speech by pointing out the delay that occurred does not mean the House of Representatives is far from the circle of communication and with the executive authority or broad consultation, exchange information, and access to the country's financial details, but rather the House of Representatives is fully informed and appreciates the importance of the time frame for making estimates and building practical and professional applications. The necessary precision, especially in the 2024-2025 budgets. So there you have it. That's what I explained it, that they're putting it out there. It says that there's a gentleman by the name of Muhammad Nouri. It says the budget law schedules were supposed to be presented in the previous session of the Council of Ministers, but they were postponed due to increase in government spending. So they reiterate stuff like that. But basically, the budget is in the next session of the Council of Ministers. So that Council of Ministers, the next one they have, is normally on Tuesday of next week. What, could they do it sooner? We'll find out. It says that the acting Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mandelawi, agreed with the Prime Minister. He's agreeing with Shia al-Sudani on the necessity of completing these schedules budget law for 2024 and expediting sending them to the House of Representatives for the purpose of discussing and voting on them for their connection to the lives of citizens and their focus on investment spending for new projects. So basically what they're doing, these delays are causing or will cause pressure, because this is an investment world. They're going to go into a market economy, and you can see the evidence of that is everywhere. With the Turkey deal, with Spain coming in, all these different countries coming into play are really effectively showing you that Iraq is going international. You have the TIR, which is the European Union Trucking Transportation accession the other day. So things like that are all key components to show that the development road project is happening. It's underway. They built out 3 ports, the Burrs 3 and 4 completely. So in the Port of Fa. So you can see that, man, these guys are doing things. They are taking the bull by the horn and running with it. So the Arab Union of Banks confirmed today, which is Wednesday, the Iraq's environment is good and encourages investment, and the country has a pivotal role in the Arab banking sector. So the Arab Union is being, that's about 20 different banks, part of the Arab League, I believe, and they're in full sync with Iraq to get rolling. The Iraqi private banking sector is ancient. It's been around for a long time. The private role, and they have had a pivotal role in the region and their Arab investments in banks that are present within the Iraqi banking market. So these Arab banks are within the Iraqi market. Shia al-Sudani, he's basically talking about the importance of investments of these Iraqi banks inside Iraq, and he believes that it's possible due to the good and encouraging environment that qualifies investors to enter this market and make investments. So al-Sudani's basically set the stage for all these things that we've been seeing. It's all coming together at this time. It's really quite interesting. All Iraqi government and private banks have been members of the union since its founding, and the sector owns 500 banks within the Arab world, 400 of which are members of the Union of Arab Banks, and some banks are not entitled to membership if the percentage of foreign investment in banks was more than the percentage of Arab banks. So there's an issue there. If a bank, for instance, like in Jordan, owns too much of a share of a company, that can create a problem for that bank, because they need to have, they don't want them to have more than the major share. And so that things might get shaken up a little bit or adjusted accordingly for banks, and that's going to be on them. It's not going to be on us. It says the Arab banks with full Arab capital are entitled to be members of the Union of Arab Banks, and we have over 20 Arab countries. That's a lot of countries, a lot of banks. Challenges facing Arab banks in complying with international laws and legislating, meeting with the requirements of correspondent banks. They held a meeting in Baghdad, and there was a large number of Arab banks showed up. So basically, there's no coincidence in this. The Union of Arab Banks knows what's coming to Iraq. They know that this development road, sustainable development projects are going to get it underway, and they're going to be part of that, or they're going to miss out. And so they're probably not going to want to miss out. They're going to be a part of it. House of Representatives, again, extends their legislative by 30 days. We all know that. And why? It's because they have the protection of having an emergency meeting and extraordinary sessions within that time frame of 30 days. So at any time they could do that, and I think that's what they did. They just bought a little extra time. Well, they didn't put it out any extra time. They just basically cover themselves in case something does happen, I guess. The Minister of Transport chairs a meeting of the Supreme Transit Committee between Iraq and Turkey. So this is going to be a little bit more evidence that what I was been talking about, that these guys are getting ready to go international, like in a big way. This is not new, because the TIR, which is the Transit International Transport Agreement, back in, I believe it was April 21st, 2023, had a session to this group and that's all about international trucking. And that's going to talk about borders, that's going to talk about guarantors, that's going to be talking about free trade effectively. The reduction of customs and taxes between countries when they have agreements, when they're members. Effectively, it's a free trade zone. And Iraq is doing that. And they very well may be the guarantor when it comes to the necessities for this to happen. It says, it was agreed during the committee meeting to activate the land and rail transport agreement between Iraq and Turkey, noting that the agreement includes Iraq's accession to the Transit International Transport Agreement, TIR. Article below says income streams. How much will Iraq gain from the TIR agreement, which they talk about? Basically what they are talking about from April 2023 is effectively they had the accession and now they're talking about activating it. And that's key because they're going to need formulas and mechanisms to do so. One of the things that is part of that is a formula is a mathematical equation. So hopefully what they only need now, that precision. They need that precision, which is going to be a final number, precise number, so that they can make their adjustments for trade. And that's where we're coming from. And guess when they're going to try to do that? It looks like the statement states that Al-Sadawi directed to hold a meeting next Saturday for the General Transport Corporation Company by Land and the Customs Authority under the provision of the Legal Department and the General Secretariat of the Council of Ministers. So interesting. I didn't catch that. So I did catch the Saturday part, but I didn't catch the bit about the Council of Ministers. So the Council of Ministers, from this standpoint, is going to be in meetings on Saturday, and that's tomorrow. So could they be early? Could they do something different? Could it be an emergency session? We'll find out. Let's see, the Legal Department, General Secretary of Council of Ministers to come up with an understanding and a formula to activate the international agreement on transit land transport. One of its provisions is an arrangement with the customs, the General Company for Land Transport, be the local guarantor. If you guys want to look that up, Google it. You can find out that it's important and what it means. I did it this morning. I suggest everybody do that if you have the time. It says, look, working formulas for activation with international trucking between countries is a key indicator of more evidence that Iraq is fully capable and ready of international trade. Iraq has had that accession to the TIR for over a year. This is not a new thing. They just didn't get involved with this. It's been a work in progress, and Iraq is about to roll across and into many countries. Turkey is just one of them. So take a look at this. We have all this information in our Patreon, which is patreon.com/MM&crew. And we'll have all of you, anybody that wants to come in and check out this stuff, it's going to be fascinating. Spain signs praise of development method project. Iraq is a source of concern for Europe. Big concern. Why? Because they're going to make a lot of money. The European Union, Spain is part of the European Union. Spain is part of the TIR, as is the Union. Okay, the Iraq is of great importance to the European Union countries due to its important strategic location for global trade. Iraq is adopting global strategic projects such as the Development Road Project, which will change the map of Iraq and the world. Love it when they say that because it's a global event and it's undeniable anymore. It says that they will change the map of Iraq and the world with regard to the transportation sector. So land, sea, everything's going to be involved. Air. All European Union countries care about Iraq, and the development path will facilitate communication between Iraq, Europe, and the world. So it sounds like they're going to have a really big, powerful project ahead of us. Minister of Transport announced earlier today, Friday, they'll reopen the Baghdad-Samarra railway line after a hiatus that lasted more than 21 years. So they opened up a railway line. So since 2003, it's been defunct, and that's on the table now and ready to go. The next thing I wanted to get into is people have a little bit of confusion on this, but it really shouldn't be. The bottom line is that Iraq is going to make an exchange rate change. They've told you about it. This article that's called today, it's a new article, but it's bits and pieces of older articles, but it's also relevant because it's in the news today. And why is it important is because floating the dinar returns to the forefront. Will the Central Bank of Iraq resort to it and what are the risks. So if you have an opportunity to come into the Patreon room and to the Discord chat room, you can find these articles and then you can read the whole thing for yourself, because it's a long one. But I'm going to say this. There's a thing called a managed float. There's many floats. I think his Patreon member, Spigs, brought it to us, and I put it in the forum and listed his study on that. I want to thank him again, because that was a good job. But it can help people understand that just saying a float or a peg or a fixed isn't always accurate, because there's definitions of varying types of those items. And in this particular case, they go on to talk about the pros and cons, if you will, which ones work, mixed or fixed or float, da-da-da-da-da. But the bottom line, a managed float is a mixed of a fixed and a float. And it goes on to tell us that, well, first, if we back up a little bit, this whole article effectively has things of like this. The Central Bank of Iraq adopted a fixed policy. So now that it's at 1320, let's say today, it's fixed. Just like when it was at 1460, it was fixed. But when they call for release the price and not fix it at a specific rate, it means that they're changing. They're going to change it. But are they going to change it to a free float? Probably not, because there's a lot of risks at that stage, especially in a vulnerable situation where Iraq is, because they're coming off of a oil rent, as they call it, economy to a market economy. And so what they're saying here is, the one that I want to focus on, not take too much time on it, is a managed float. And they have success in the managed float. And it's not about the exchange rate so much as it's how they keep the exchange rate stable in a price range, because they have business to take care of. They want price stability, etc. But ultimately, what is their goal is raising the value of the dinar against the dollar. That's basically what they're going to be trying to do. But here, this Morocco experience is their experience of floating the currency was successful in one of the Arab countries and supported its economy positively. In 2018, Morocco adopted a new monetary policy, which was represented and what is known as a managed float policy. This policy is a combination between the fixed rate policy and the floating rate policy, through which central banks set lower and upper limits for movement by determining the exchange rate against currency or group of foreign currencies. And one of these banks was the Central Bank of Morocco that did that, and they were successful. This gentleman, Al-Abadi, says the managed float policy aims to gradually liberalize the currency until complete liberalization of the exchange rate is achieved. He says, indeed, the Central Bank of Morocco has begun to set a fluctuation range, which is known as the margin of rise or fall in the exchange rate, which initially reached about 0.3%. So that's a pretty tight range, meaning that the central bank is allowed to rise above the specified exchange rate by 0.3% or decrease by that amount, according to supply and demand, until it reaches a fluctuation range of about 5%. So this policy was accompanied by a support policy represented canceling customs tariffs on some basic materials such as food and supporting funds that support vulnerable classes. Interesting part right there, canceling customs. If you go back to what I talked about, the TIR, that is something that you should be aware of. When I said go look it up, you'll find that there is free trade. If you remember what I said, they give way to customs and tariffs for specific countries that are part of that TIR union, if you will, and if they have a session. So anyway, this particular article goes on to talk about Mohammed Saleh's article that we already posted a few days ago, but they put it out again, that the floating scenario is dangerous, it can be unruly, and he gives many reasons why. So the bottom line is a mixed or a a mixture of the managed float, which takes into consideration both the best of both worlds, if you will. So I would say that that's probably the safest option for Iraq, and I would imagine that's what they're going to do. The last thing that the central bank wants to do is waste their foreign reserves unnecessarily. Any unjustified extravagance in foreign exchange to impose a state of stability is probably not a good thing. So in other words, when you're selling your foreign currency outside to defend your currency in a floating market can be very dangerous. And so I think Saleh knows what he's talking about. He's been around a long time. He's worked with Al-Awlaq for many years. So when they work together as a team like they do, Taif Sami, Sudani, Al-Awlaq, it's impressive. They really do a good job. They've had the MCOE, the Ministerial Council of Economics, for quite some time. And they all work together as a team. However, I think that Al-Sudani, one of the reasons why they haven't quite got to that precision yet, I think that precision, which is to me would be considered the exchange rate, and that precision is under Alaq's hand, and I think they want to keep it as close to their chest as possible until the last minute, until they can legally get away with it safe as possible. So that's where they are on that. So they have an article today about approving the national security strategy of parliamentary movement, who will host responsible figures today. And national security, basically everybody, is about when they go do like these investment projects, they're going to need security. The workers need security. They need to know they're going to be in a safe environment. So they made adjustments to the security meetings with the Ministerial Council of National Security and their Defense Department. And basically they're stating that, look, the strategic and development strategy that is being implemented in the capital, which is construction and all that, in Baghdad and the rest of the governments around the country, and providing protection for them and their workers because of their great importance in the government and its approach to sustainable development and advancing the economic reality of the country. And so is it timing? I mean, what are we seeing here? We're seeing security being set. They've got the Kurdistan Regional Guard forces. They drop customs and duties on the military sales, etc., just like for the defense and interior and counterterrorism services of the country. So they're inclusive to the Kurdistan Regional Guards. They didn't do that before. And all of a sudden, why are they doing it now? Because of the last minute final data, that's what it looks like. Then the conflict of the corridors, the path of development from a historical perspective, and the door to cooperation between Baghdad and Ankara. So basically what's happened in the last couple of weeks, we saw that Turkey made important concessions related to cross-border water management agreement, and the two governments reached a 10-year agreement on that water, which should guarantee sufficient levels of water flowing from Turkey, while Ankara also pledged to help Iraq build advanced irrigation systems. Water and agriculture is going to be a big deal for Iraq. The tourism in the marshlands, all that stuff is going to come into play. And by the way, they go on to talk about Ankara and Baghdad concluded an agreement exporting Iraqi oil via the Kirkuk-Cyan pipeline. So we've been waiting to hear about that, but we haven't seen the mechanism for that to get started yet. We thought that would be on the 1st, and what's the date today? It's been quite a few days, but we're not deep away from it. But bottom line is, their main achievement of Erdogan's visit is the agreement on the so-called development path that aims to find alternative routes for trade to the Mediterranean basin and European Union. So all of the things that we've been talking about are coming true, and our study is looking to be really powerful because it's all unfolding. We obviously didn't have a crystal ball and say what day, but it's obviously happening before our eyes. So anyway, the development road is the most important project to diversify Iraq's country's oil-dependent economy, as Iraq sees the road as an opportunity to create a new type of economy, that market economy, with a focus on green energy and a shift in investment from major population centers to desert areas where infrastructure such as roads will need to be in place, exist, etc. All the industrial cities, all the things that they have to do. They got to have food, they have to have gas, they have to have their oil, they need to have housing, they need to have rest stops, they need to have all that stuff. equipment, parts for trucks, all that, everything they're going to need, all of those big things. So basically what's going to happen is Iraq's going to open to the international world, and they're going to reconstruct this country, and they're not going to do it at 1310. The math does not work for Iraq to, they don't even have 228 trillion dinar. How are you going to have that? Drop the 3 zeros, the number changed dramatically. And then you have all the natural resources, and you have all the different revenue streams that we've been talking about. All that's going to take into place, and therefore these non-oil revenue streams that they've been using for the last year, since 2023 up until now, they're going to have an adjustment for that, because they're going to take into consideration all those incomes. And therefore that precision is what we're waiting for. And they probably likely already have it, or most of those big companies that are in the United States of America wouldn't have arrived and started opening up or doing those contracts that they agreed to, nor would Turkey have turned the water back on. So obviously everybody take a sit back and think about it and watch and wait. This is getting really good. Basically, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be building public services and infrastructure. It says there's a committee in the parliament that held a meeting the other day to study a final vote, which the committee needs to know the details of financial disbursement and the laws that have been added to the budget. So they're going to get that stuff. I don't think that they're going to focus in on the exchange rate, because that's not their job. Percentages are. Every budget has a piece of the pie. 100%, you're going to divide it up, and they'll be able to make the amendment for what? Adjust the exchange rate, possibly. That's what we believe it is. Iraq faces serious challenges in the field of development and improving infrastructure. Delaying the approval of the budget reinforces these challenges and hinders the country's ability towards sustainable development and the well-being of the citizens. And that's basically what this is all about. Getting it going, get it over the edge, and let's start do the construction and interlink all these road projects, the railway projects, the airports. All of those things are ready and to adopt them to go live. And basically, what is it to do? Iraq's government and parliament must work quickly, so there's pressure on, and adopt appropriate decisions to complete the budget and implement projects. And one news agency says delaying the Iraqi budget hinders the implementation of projects and opens the door to corruption. So obviously the pressure's up, and it's getting turned up high, because the tripartite budget needs to be sorted. And to me, this is all getting very good. So hey, I appreciate you guys being with me on Friday. And if you like the content, hit the subscribe button and those like buttons too. And also, if you would keep in mind that we have those venues for PayPal, Zelle, and Venmo for keeping this place up and running and in top shape. Thank you. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.